Yeah, good morning, everybody. In the last class, we were discussing about how to apply the boundary condition to a given FEM equations. And we have started with numericals on that particular handling of the boundary condition. We have already seen elimination approach, few examples, and I have also shown the application of the second method, that is penalty approach. Now today, I will be taking a similar problem with the elimination approach only, but this time I will be taking the body force into account. That is, self weight of the component will be taken into account along with the mechanical loads. How to solve such problems? I will be taking this. So this problem is defined like this. There is a tapered bar. You can see here. This is the axis, symmetrical axis here, and this is the tapered bar here. Here now, and here at the midpoint, there is a point load which has been applied here. This is the P, is the point load which has been applied, and this distance, which we call it as let us say W2, is given as 30 mm, and on the top, the width of this top is given as, let us say W1 has been given as 600 mm. It is 60 mm, and the load P, it is equal to 100 Newton load has been applied, and the length of this particular member is going to be, here both are equal because the load is acting exactly at the center. This is going to be 120 mm each. This is going to be 120 mm each. So this is the structure, and of course he has given you the thickness of this also has been given. It is a small thin plate with a small thickness of 1 mm. The thickness of this side view, if you look at this, this is T, is given as 1 mm. He has given these data. Apart from that, he has also given you certain numericals like this. See, he has given the Young's modulus for this as 200 gigapascal, and the weight density has been given here. This is called weight density, which is, though it is called as a rho, it is 76.6 into 10 raised to minus 6 Newton per kilometer cube. In our word, we will also call this as F. This is called as the body force. The weight density can also be called as the body force, and this is the problem which we need to find out here. Now, since the cross-sectional area of this tapered bar is continuously varying, then we cannot find out the equivalent, you can say, stiffness matrix or whatever it is possible for directly for this problem we cannot do. Therefore, what we first step is we need to modify. We need to modify this into a simpler form. For example, I want to find out this width at the midpoint, which let us call it as, let us say, WM. I call it as width of the midpoint. So here, if I want to find out the width at the middle, that is WM, if I want, it is the average of W1 plus W2 upon 2, which is 60 plus 30 upon 2, which is called as 45 mm. This is the, what you can say, width of the midpoint. So if we, since the load P has been given here, obviously if I want to apply the first step of FEM, that is discretization, I need to pass a plane here so that I can divide these two into two elements. So with this, if I show you here, this will be the first part. That is, this part is 1, where this is W1 and this is your WM. And if I take the next part, which is the bottom portion, if I take like this is going to be WM and this is going to be W2. Now, again, even after the division of into two elements like this, we still have a tapered portion. So according to the midpoint rule, what we call it, if I want to add like this, for example, if I draw a midpoint line to get the average diameter of this extra thing, whatever is there here and here, this can be transferred here. This can be transferred here. Similarly, if I take the midpoint rule again, for this also again here, I can transfer the excess part, which is there here, to this part, and this part I will add it. So after the transformation, what I will get is, this is going to be a stepped bar of uniform diameter. So this comes out to be like this. So this is the element number 1 for us. This is the element number for this. Now the width of this, since it is W1, Wm, so I need to find out the new width. That is, for example, let us call it as W1 dash, which is going to be same throughout the length. So to find out, and this, if I want to call this as the new width, which is called as the average width, let us call it as W2 dash. This is the new width of this member. The length will remain same. That is, each one is still remaining as 120 only. This is 120 and this is also 120. The length of these two will remain same. Now how to find out this average width? Average width W1 dash is going to be again the average of these two. That is W1 plus Wm upon 2. That is W1 plus Wm upon 2. Similarly, W2 dash, if I want, it is Wm plus W2 upon 2 it is. So according to us, this is going to be 60 plus 45 upon 2. This is equal to 45 plus 30 upon 2, which will give you 52.5 mm, and this will give you 37.5 mm. So with this, the current figure, like for example, earlier this figure was, if you look at the 3D view, this was a taper plate with a portion like this, and this was the midpoint. Now what we converted this is, we converted into a uniform area, this one, with this much is the average width, and another step has been added to this. This is going to be the same modified, you can say, form of that particular tapered bar. Now it is going to be very simple. Now we can directly discretize it to simple steps. So therefore, I will be now drawing this new figure. That is, this is going to be my new figure, and this is going to be the new next one. Right? So if I take this here, there is a load here. This is P, and this is your element number 1. This is your element number 2. And at the same time, the length of this will be 120, and this will be 120, right? And at the same time, this is, of course, since it is a one-dimensional problem, it will be considered as X, and we will now consider it as node 1. Here, this is the node 1, this is node 2, and this is going to be node 3. So it is going to be 2 elements with the 3 nodes. So you can model it in the side view. You can see here, this is our side view, 1, 2, 3, and this is element number 1, element number 2. The nodal displacements are Q1, Q2, and Q3, and the corresponding forces F1, F2, and F3. These are the forces which are acting at these 3 nodes. Now, first let us find out the area. This is going to be our area. Let me consider this area as A1, and this area I will consider it as A2. So corresponding to this area, A1 will be equal to W1 dash into T, and A2 will be W2 dash into T. Since T is going to be only 1 mm, I can write directly it as 52.5 millimeter square, and this I can call it as 37.5 millimeter square. So this is going to be the areas of the cross section of the 2 stepped bars. Once we know this, now let us find out the element stiffness matrix for this. Okay, first let us write element stiffness matrix. Okay, this is the element. So that is going to be K1. See, K1 is always going to be A1 E1 upon L1 into bracket 1 minus 1 minus 1 1. So in the present case, A1 is going to be 52.5, and E is 200 into 10 raised to 3, and L being 120, this is going to be 1 minus 1 minus 1 1. This is going to be the first element stiffness matrix, and once you reduce it, it will become 10 raised to 5 into bracket 0.875 minus 0.875 minus 0.875, 0.875. This is our 1, this is second node, this is first node, and this is second node. So this is going to be the element stiffness matrix for the element number 1. Similarly, if I want to find out for element number 2, K2, it is going to be same, A2, E2 upon L2 into bracket 1 minus 1 minus 1, 1. So directly I will write the answer, that is 10 raised to 5. If you take that 0.625 minus 0.625 minus 6.625, 0.625. This is going to be the second, you can say, element for which the nodal connectivity is 2, 3, 2, 3. So once you know the element stiffness matrix for both of them, I can find out the global stiffness matrix. This is the global stiffness matrix. Capital K is equal to 10 raised to 5 will come outside. This will going to be 0.875 minus 0.875. This will be 0 minus 0.875. After adding these two, this will come this much, 0.625, 0 minus 0.625, 0.625. This is 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and 3. So this is what is going to be called as our global stiffness matrix. See, once we know all this, the most important part of this is what is called as the load vector. See, here there are two types of loads. That is, one load is due to the self weight, that is due to the density what is being given, and another is due to the point load which is acting. So all of you already, you must be knowing in the earlier stage when we have already discussed this. If you want to consider the body force, that is, this is called as body force, which is represented as F, which is usually Newton per millimeter cube or meter cube. If you want to find out this, and if it is having a length L, L is the length of the member and A is the cross-sectional area of this. For example, if I want to consider this particular cylindrical object, okay, with length L and cross-sectional area and all that, if I want to represent this as a one-dimensional element here, the total weight of this is the total weight which is given by FA into L. This is the total weight of this entire cylindrical object. So when we consider the FEM analysis, we find that this particular load is getting distributed into equally half here and equally half here. Here it is half and here it is half. This is the way the load distribution is going to take place. So therefore, let us find out this load vector F1 or F for the first element. It is going to be F1 A1 L1 upon 2 into bracket 1 1 we consider for the first element it is. Similarly, if I want it for the second element, it is F2 A2 L2 upon 2 1 1, and this is again for 2 3. Okay, this is the way in which we are taking into account the effect of the body force or the self weight of this member. See, presently you see here the weight has been given here at 76.6 into 10 raised to minus 6. Area you have calculated, it is 52.5, and the length being 120 upon 2, and this will be considered as vector like 1 1. Similarly, here also 76.6 into 10 raised to minus 6 will remain same, but the area is different, 0.37 into the length remains same upon 2 into this 1 1 will get this. So if you look at the final answers after the conversion, what I am going to get this is, the first one is going to come as 0.241, and this is also 0.24 only. This is between 1 and 2, and if you take this, this is coming as 0.1723. Okay, this is going to be the 2. This of course going to be 2 and 3 now. For the second element, when I consolidate the two body force vectors, the distribution of the body force at node 1 and 2 and 2 and 3 will be shown like this. Then of course, if you want to find out the global, you can say load vector, what is happening here is F1 A1 L1 by 2 of the first, that will be there at the node 1, that is only one there. Whereas when it will come to this, F1 A1 L1, half of the total weight of the first member is already going to be there at node 2 also. In addition, I will be having the weight of the bottom member, that is second member, half of that is getting contributed here. Plus, since there is a point load at 2, node 2, even that is also getting added, because it is called as the global load vector. It includes all types of loads, body force and the point loads, and in the next topic I will be discussing what are called as thermal loads or temperature loads. Those also get added in the same thing. Whereas in the third column, third row you can say, this will be again FA2 upon 2 only. So this will represent what is called as the global load vector. When I add all these things, what I will get is this. 0.241 will remain. This will become 100.4133, 0.1723. See, this is going to be what is called as your total global nodal vector. This is the global total global nodal vector or global force vector, call it. So once we know this, now we are going for the final FEM equation. Now see here, I will be writing that is KQ is equal to F. Just you have seen the 10 raised to 5 into bracket. What was the reference? 0.875 minus 0.875, 0 minus 0.875 and 0. This is 1.5 minus 0.312. So, minus 0.625 minus 0.625, 0.625. This is what you are going to get that. Then here it is going to be Q1, Q2, Q3, and which is equal to the global load vector just now what you have found out, 0.241, 100.4133, 0.1723. See, this is going to be the global load vector. Now, to handle the boundary conditions by elimination approach, this is more simple. This can be done by penalty approach also, I will tell you, but definitely you can do anything. Since the first node is fixed, that means Q1 is equal to 0. So since the node 1 has been fixed, we can eliminate first row and the first column. When we eliminate that, the two remaining equations will be remaining that. Once you solve this particular equation, this is the equation to be solved now. This is the leftover equation. So if you solve for that, you will get the two nodal displacement. Q2 will come 1.149 into 10 raised to minus 3 millimeter, whereas Q3 will come 1.152 into 10 raised to minus 3 millimeter. So therefore, in case if you want to write the global nodal displacement vector, Q1 being 0, this you can write into 10 raised to minus 3 and 1.152 into 10 raised to minus 3 transpose millimeter. So this will give me what is called as the global nodal displacement vector. Now with the help of this, now I can calculate the stresses and the reactions. Now let us quickly calculate the stresses in these two members due to this particular load. Okay, first let us say sigma 1, that is the stress in the member 1, that is element number 1. So how to take that? I have already told you stresses. Stresses I want to find out. Stress, first element sigma 1, which is given by E1 upon L1 minus 1, 1, and here this is going to be Q1 and Q2, because as far as the element connectivity is concerned, it is Q1 and Q2. So let us substitute that. This is equal to 200 into 10 raised to 3 divided by 120 into bracket minus 1 and 1, and here you know that it is 0, and the next nodal displacement is 1.149 into 10 raised to minus 3. So if you solve for it, the stress will come 1.915 megapascal. This is the tensile stress because it is coming positive. So that meaning is the first member is under tension. Similarly, if I want to find out the stress in the second element, it is E2. In case if the second member is of different material, I have to write it as E2. In the present problem, there is no problem because it is already both the members are of the same material. So E1 equal to E2 only. But in case in some problems where stepped bars of different materials are there, then the corresponding Young's modulus need to be substituted there. So therefore, this will become 200 into 10 raised to 3 will remain same. It is having the same length, 1 minus 1 and 1 will remain same. Here, it is 1.149 into 10 raised to minus 3 and the other one is 1.152 into 10 raised to minus 3. Altogether, this will give you the stress 0.005. It's too small, but this is the value of the stress, what you are going to get that. Okay. Then finally, to find out the reaction, there is only one reaction at the fixed node, that is node 1, that is R1. For that I have already told you, whatever you have removed, the first, you can say row, whatever you have removed, need to be taken K13 into Q3 minus F1. Yeah. The most important thing I would like to tell you here is this one. Here, in earlier problems, whatever you had considered, since there was absence of any force, it was not there. So therefore, we used to take it as direct 0. But here, when you come here, at node 1, there is some force, always. Please remember, the contribution due to half of the weight of the first element is still acting at node 1. So therefore, I need to consider that weight also. So therefore, here you see Q1 is already 0. So there is no problem. According to you, K13 here, this is also 0. So what is effectively remaining is this and this. So for example, K12, what is K12? Minus 0.875 into 10 raised to 5. That is going to be the K2, this K12 into the corresponding displacement K2, that is 1.149 into 10 raised to 3 minus, okay, what is the weight here? The force which is going to be present here is 0.241. This. So when you take all this, you can say total thing comes 100.568. With a negative sign, because the negative sign automatically it comes because always the reaction is in the upward direction when the load is acting in the downward direction. And again remember, this figure can be easily calculated. This R1 is also equivalent to F1, A1, L1 plus F2, A2, L2 plus the load P. If you add all the three with a negative sign, you can say this will be definitely equal to the reaction R1, whatever you have calculated. This can be found out, and you can compare your answers, and if they are matching, that's fine. Then it will be perfectly, the solutions are same. So this will tell you how exactly one has to solve problems on body forces taken into account, because only the, you can say, point loads will not be sufficient. Here we need to consider the self weight of the components. In many of the huge structures, the weight of the structure itself is so large that the deformation can take place because of its own weight. So therefore we need to take into account the self weight along with the external loads, and then find out the deformations and the corresponding stresses and the corresponding reactions at the supports, so that you can provide the proper sizes for all the supports and all other details like this. Okay. Now, as I just now mentioned you, when we are talking about a member can be induced with the stresses because of, first we started with point loads. Okay, then just now we added the effect of body force. Now, I will be adding another important effect due to which the stresses can be induced in the member. This is called as temperature effect. We call it as temperature effect. See, according to the effect, what do you mean by temperature effect? See, when the body initially, if it is having at room temperature, and let us say at T1, and if you increase the temperature of the member to T2, then the increment or the decrement, both are possible. We call it as the delta T as the T2 minus T1. That is the temperature, higher temperature to which it has been raised, minus the initial temperature which it was there. So this delta T, if it is a positive, it indicates that there is a rise in temperature. And at the same time, if it is negative, there is a cooling effect. There is a reduction in the temperature, and because of contraction, the member also gets stresses, thermal stresses are possible. So therefore, what is that we are considering is, let alpha is what is called as coefficient of thermal expansion. Coefficient of thermal expansion. Okay, per every degree centigrade, what is the temperature? Therefore, if I want the strain, that is, if I want the temperature strain, you can say E naught. We call it as alpha into the corresponding temperature delta T. This will tell us the initial strain. We call it as when the member has been only without application of the external load. When you apply the external load, the strain will be epsilon. Stress will be sigma, and strain will be epsilon. But due to the temperature effect only, when you raise the temperature from some initial temperature to some final temperature, for example, room temperature was 30 degrees centigrade. I raise the temperature to 90 degrees centigrade. So 90 minus 30, which is called as 60 degree, that is delta T. This delta T of 60 degree will cause an initial strain. This is called initial strain. So this need to be taken into account, and corresponding to this strain, initial strain, the stress strain diagram is slightly getting modified, and because of that, the stresses due to this initial strain as well as the strain due to the external load, they need to be taken into account, and I will like to show you how that particular drawing will come. So let me show you the diagram. This is the strain, this is the stress. The line will shift here now because of this initial strain. Stress strain diagram will shift here, and this is going to be the area under this curve. This is the area under this curve. This is the strain energy, what we call it as the strain energy, and this stress is given by E times epsilon minus epsilon naught. This is the way you are going to get this. This is the stress and this is the corresponding strain. When you multiply both of them, automatically it will give you the strain energy absorbed per unit volume. So therefore, now this initial strain, with the help of this, I would like to find out the stress. Stress sigma is given by E into bracket epsilon minus epsilon naught. Therefore, if I want to write strain energy per unit volume, which if I represent it as U naught, it is going to be the area under this curve, that is half sigma into bracket epsilon minus epsilon naught. And if I substitute the value of sigma here, this will be equal to, this can also be equal to half sigma is going to be E. Since we cannot directly, it is going to be a vector, I need to take a transpose of this into E minus E naught. I have to take that. And if you want, this is for the smaller element what you have considered here. But if you want the strain energy per unit volume of the entire structure, total strain energy, you can say strain energy for entire structure. If I want that, then I have to integrate the total equation, which let us say I will call it as U is equal to half over the length L. I will be doing that because I need to consider the volume. When I multiply the volume, it is going to be area into dx for the one-dimensional elements. So this is going to be there. So if you want, you can directly write this. Because you know, when we want to convert into the natural coordinates, we know that dx is always obtained by Le by 2 d zeta. So naturally, when I substitute that here, this will come into picture. U equal to summation over the element half AE, and this Le will by 2 will come here, and this limit from 0 to L will change from minus N2 plus 1, minus 1 to plus 1, then this is minus E naught transpose into E to E minus E naught into T zeta. Once you move from the Cartesian coordinate to the natural coordinates, this equation will change. Suppose if you have this is from 0 to L, this will change from minus 1 to plus 1. This is the change which is going to occur. So we need to replace dx by integration of minus 1 to plus 1, Le by 2 d zeta, and then we have to do this. Then we already know that the strain vector is always given by what? B into Q, where strain displacement vector, B is called strain displacement vector. So if I substitute that into this big equation, what I will get is U equal to summation E half Q transpose, this will come EE AE LE by 2 minus 1 to plus 1 B transpose B into d zeta into Q. This will be there. In addition, we will get minus E Q transpose EA LE by 2 epsilon naught integrate minus 1 to plus 1 B transpose d zeta plus summation over all the elements half EE AE LE by 2 epsilon naught square. So this is the total expansion of this total strain energy after the taking into account each term into this. See, all of you are already knowing that this particular first part, which is being the strain energy part, and this bracketed term is always going to give me what is called as element stiffness matrix. This already we have studied. This first part, that is EAE LE upon 2 integration, this will give you the element strain matrix KE, which you are already very familiar, AE upon LE into bracket 1 minus 1 minus 1 1. You finally will obtain this once you use this bracketed term and integrate that. And when you look at the last term, you see here, this is all completely consisting of constants. And when you take because once we find out all these equations, we need to find out what is called as the differentiation of this entire equation we have to do for with respect to each nodal displacement. So during the differentiation, since it is a constant, this will get eliminated. So finally, what is remaining with us is only this part. So this particular part represents the thermal stress part. That is, it is the part which is showing us the effect of temperature stress. How to take into account the effect of temperature. This will be shown. With that, let us see how to expand this and find out the remaining part. Okay. So now let us go quickly study this part. See, now this theta E, that is the effect of temperature stress, what we call it as. This is the element load due to temperature. Element load due to temperature. Temp means temperature. This is equal to E, AE, LE, epsilon naught, minus 1 to plus 1, P transpose T zeta. But you are already knowing that epsilon is 1 by alpha delta T. This is the initial strain. If I substitute that into this equation, what I will get is theta T E will comes out to be EE, AE, LE, alpha, delta T upon x2 minus x1, and this is coming minus 1, 1. Why this will come? Because you know B matrix is nothing but 1 upon x2 minus x1 into bracket minus 1, 1. This is the value of the B, where x2 minus x1 is nothing but the length LE. This is nothing but the length LE only. So when you take this as length LE, this length cancels. So finally what is left is AE, AE, alpha delta T up, this is that into bracket minus 1, 1. This is for the element number. This is called thermal load vector. So this is getting added with the conventional other loads. If there are any other loads like point loads, load due to self weight and all that, this is not getting added to that. And in the final, what you can say, body force vector, we can add all these things. See, for example, if I say body force vector, if I take one component like this, where this is the body force, this is the body force, F. This is called a traction. I have already told you this is called a traction. On the surface, this is acting. This is the traction. And now in addition to this, I am adding a temperature rise to this. So therefore, there are, and of course, you can add one load also. That is a point load. P can also be added here. So please remember, there are 4 types of loads which are acting on the same member. One is load due to body force, load due to traction, load due to point load. In addition, we have load due to temperature. So therefore, if you look at the global, you can say load vector, this is going to be the summation of the body force vector plus the traction vector plus the theta E, just now what you have found out. In addition to that, at the given node, the load is getting added. Particular point P, if it is a load vector, that point P can be added at the respective position. So this will give you the, what you can say, load vector. Now, once we find out that, how to find out the stress? Because once we know that the load vector and the other factors are found out now here, how to find out the stress due to this? See, this is given by E into bracket epsilon minus epsilon naught, which is given by E into bracket, this is the BQ, and this is alpha delta T. This is going to be like this. So if you add this sigma is equal to E upon x2 minus x1 into bracket minus 1, 1 into Q minus E alpha delta T. This again depends. If you write it as for first element Q1 and Q2, this will be for the first element, it will be Q1 and Q2 for the first element. Suppose if you take the second element, this Q1 and Q2 will be now Q2 and Q3 now for the second element. Like if you go to the next third element, Q3 and Q4, Q4 and Q5, like that, the corresponding local nodal displacements will become the corresponding global nodal displacement vector, and I can find out the stresses due to all these things. So this will be taking care of what you call it as the temperature due thermal stresses, what we call it. So today I would like to start with one problem, and tomorrow we'll complete it in the next class. So we'll start with one simple problem. Today I will give you the data, and tomorrow we completely will solve this. Here there is a stepped bar, this is the stepped bar. This is the stepped bar with the first length of the first member L1 is equal to 200 mm. Length of the second member is given as 300 mm. And a point load is acting at node 2. If you call this as node 1 and this as node 3, a point load P of what is the magnitude? 300 kilonewton is acting at node 2. This is going to act here. See, this is the first element and this is the second member, and the first member is made up of aluminium. This first member is made up of aluminium, second member is made up of steel. See, the properties and the dimensions of this are given. Here, Young's modulus A1 and the alpha 1 for this has been given. This is given as 70 into 10 raised to 9 megapascal. It is Newton per meter square, it is, because it is a gigapascal. And this area of this is 900 millimeter square. And this is 23 into 10 raised to minus 6 per degree centigrade. This is the unit of coefficient of thermal expansion for this material. Similarly, for steel, if I write A2, E2 and alpha 2, they will be correspondingly 200 into 10 raised to 9 Newton per meter square, 1200 millimeter square, 11.7 into 10 raised to minus 6 per degree centigrade. See, this is the problem where you are asked to find out the nodal displacements and the element stresses. What is asked is nodal displacements and the second one is stresses in the members. So this is going to be a relatively simple problem, but in addition to this, he has given you the temperature. What he is telling is the applied temperature is delta T has been given. Initially, the body was at an initial temperature of 20 degrees centigrade, and finally the temperature of this is increased to 60 degrees centigrade. So therefore, the total rise in the temperature is given by T2 minus T1, which is 60 minus 20, which is 40 degree centigrade is the rise in the temperature, delta T. So first very important thing is we need to find out this delta T, and now we have to how to take into account the rise in the temperature in the total load vector. And then later on we will find out the stresses and the displacements. The very first method is very simple. The element stiffness matrix is very simple. A1 E1 upon L1 into bracket 1 minus 1 minus 1 1. This will remain same. Then the K2, this will be A2 E2 upon L2. Here of course all are different, so this will be very relevant here now. For example, first A1 is 900 into 70 into 10 raised to 3 we have to take, because I want it in Newton per millimeter square, I want that I have to take, and L1 is being 200. This is going to be 1 minus 1 minus 1 1. This is what you take. Whereas for the second one, the area being 1200 into 2, and T2 being 200 into 10 raised to 3, and the length is being 300. Okay, then this is going to be 1 minus 1 minus 1 1. So the final stiffness matrix comes out to be 10 raised to 5, 10 raised to 5, 3 1 5, 10 raised to 3, 3 1 5 minus 3 1 5 minus 3 1 5 3 1 5 1 2 1 2, and this also comes out to be 10 raised to 3 into bracket 800 minus 800 minus 800 and 800. This will come 2 3 and 2 3. So then of course you can find out the global stiffness matrix, which is going to be 10 raised to 3, 3 1 5 minus 3 1 5 0 minus 3 1 5 1 1 1 5 minus 800 minus 800 800, and here it is 0 1 2 3 1 2 3. So this will give you the global stiffness matrix. Now the most important part is the temperature vector, that is what theta 1. I want to find out thermal vector for this. The formula you are already knowing. What is the formula? Tell me. EA E1 A1 alpha 1 delta T into bracket minus 1 1. This is that. So if I substitute that, 70 into 10 raised to 3 into 900 into 23 into 10 raised to minus 6 into delta T being 40, I will write it as minus 1 1. This comes out to be 10 raised to 3 minus 57.96, 57.96. This is going to be for the two nodes, that is the thermal stress, thermal load distributed between node 1 and 2. Similarly, if I want to go for theta 2, it will be E2, A2, alpha 2, delta T, minus 1, 1, between 2 and 3, which is given by 200 into 10 raised to 3, and area being 1200 into 7.7 into 10 raised to minus 6 into delta T being 40, This will remain minus 1, 1 between 2 and 3. Finally, this answer will come 10 raised to 3, 112.32 minus with minus sign, and here 112.32. This is 2 and 3. Please remember there is a minus sign here. This is a 112 with a minus sign. First one is minus. Now once you know, I can find out the global load vector F. What is the global load vector, you tell me? We have to take into account including the point load, which is given as 300 kilonewton. So therefore, let us take 10 raised to 3 outside. The first one being how much? Minus 57.96. Here it is 57.96 for the first one. In addition, this will be added. Minus 112.32 will be added. In addition to that, there is a point load that is going to be added here. That is 300 kilonewton, because you have already taken 10 raised to 3 outside. This will be remaining. This will be the third component, which is remaining that. So altogether, if you see this, F will come 10 raised to 3 minus 57.96. Then this will come 245.64, 112.32. You will get. This is the total, you can say, load which is going to come here. Once you find out that, it is very simple now. Directly you can write the KQ equal to F. See, what I will do is, I will write down this modified equation. You can see here, now I know this is KQ is equal to F. So I will directly use this and find out Q1, Q2, Q3, and I will equate this loads minus 57.96, 245.64 and 112.32. So this is going to be there, and since node 1 has been fixed, because the boundary condition is the first node is fixed and as well as the third node is also fixed. So therefore, we need to remove third row, third column, first row and first column. So naturally, what is left is 1115 into 10 raised to 3 Q2 is equal to 245.64. So this will give me Q2 equal to 0.220 mm. Okay, so this is what where we are going to get the nodal displacements vector. So with the help of this, I will show you one of the simple calculation for sigma 1. Sigma 1, if I want to find out, it is E1 upon L1 into bracket minus 1, 1 and into bracket Q1, Q2 minus E alpha 1 delta T, if I take that. So naturally this will come 70 into 10 raised to 3 upon 200 minus 1, 1. Nodal displacement being 0. This is 0.220 minus 70 into 10 raised to 3 into 23 into 10 raised to minus 6 is being alpha 1. 40 degree is going to be this one. So all this will give you 12.60 megapascal. The similar way, if you calculate the sigma 2, it comes out to be compressive. It is coming to 27 point this. So with the help of this, now you can find out the thermal stresses in both the members. This is the way we can calculate this. So with this, today we are completing 1D analysis of 2D, you can say 2 noded bar elements. Now we are extending our discussions for tomorrow. In the next class, I would like to take up the higher order elements in 1D, that is having more number of nodes. Instead of having node 1 and node 2, I will introduce one more node, which is called node 3 at the middle, and how to make the analysis, how to find out the element stiffness matrix and all other details. That we will see it in the tomorrow's class.